A new Pokemon game is coming upon the world, and it looks decent, which in years past I would usually buy the next Nintendo console as soon as a new Pokemon game would get announced. That's how I used to do it anyway. I've owned every handheld console Nintendo has made for that very reason alone, cause I loved Pokemon. But after Sword and Shield, my love in this series finally wavered, and then Scarlet and Violet officially became the first Pokemon games I never actually completed for the first time in my entire life. Finally, after years of playing this series since day one, I'd fallen out of love with Pokemon, so what gives? Well, it looks like the reason is pretty similar to what's been going on with a lot of series I've loved in the past as well. They've all been mutated and malformed into something that they weren't before by things that have proven to be toxic to entertainment. Of course, that brings me to things like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, words anyone in the video game space who's in tune with it knows what I'm talking about. DEI has been a catastrophic inclusion when it comes to video games aplenty. It's a globalist mandate system that entices companies and more, with millions of dollars in investments, with the catch being that they are required to push what these agendas require if they want their bags of money. Why have female characters gotten uglier in games? Why are body types even a thing? Why are games that used to be edgy suddenly completely lacking of all bite? It's likely all DEI and then some. It's ruined the writing space of video games especially. It's a big reason why Sweet Baby Inc. exists in the first place, which I don't think I need to explain who they are to you either. But when it comes to Nintendo, they've been crippled by DEI, but because Nintendo is so big and has such strong franchises, they are still able to make billions regardless due to brand recognition alone. This brings me to Pokemon Legends ZA, and of course the leaks that have happened at Nintendo, so in case you don't know. Nintendo got hacked recently. A lot of data has been leaking out of that hack for days now. One of the hardest hit parts of Nintendo has been Game Freak, the company that makes Pokemon games of course. We now know every single Pokemon game coming out between now to about 2030. We know that the next mainline Pokemon game will be called Wind and Wave as well, and it will have Wind Waker style ocean exploration both above and below water. And if you're anything like me, you've likely grown tired of Pokemon games specifically because Nintendo tends to phone it in more often than not these days. There's really no point in telling people to boycott Nintendo or Pokemon because it's impossible. Not that I'm telling you to boycott it, but let's be real, the brand is way too strong anyways. Pokemon, in case you also don't know, is the single largest, most profitable IP in the entire world too. As seen here from visualcapitalist.com in their updated rankings, Pokemon sits at number 1 with a value of $147 billion, which is absolutely insane. What's even crazier is the drop off from first place to just second, because in second place as seen here is Hello Kitty of all things, sitting at $89 billion. And then Winnie the Pooh somehow is worth $76 billion, which I didn't even know it was that popular, to be real with you. But when the first place Pokemon is worth almost double what third place's Winnie the Pooh is worth, yeah, Pokemon is very, very profitable. To really drive that point home too, Pokemon is actually worth more IP-wise than Batman, Spider-Man, the entire Dragon Ball franchise, and Harry Potter combined. Yeah, nuts, I know. By the way, those 4 franchises I just mentioned in total are worth just $116 billion. So you could actually even throw in the Gundam franchise, which is another $27 billion, and then that's probably closer to what Pokemon is worth alone actually. Anyway, like I was saying, Pokemon is worth a lot of money, which is why it's frustrating that the quality of its products these past 10 years and then some have been anything but. If you were born in the 90s like me and very early 2000s, you likely played the Pokemon games during the era known as the Matsuda era. You see, Junichi Matsuda, who I keep saying Masuda, but it's Matsuda because my tongue keeps doing that, but anyways, this is the guy on screen here, has been responsible for many games you've likely loved and played yourselves. But during that massive data breach at Nintendo, we found out that the Matsuda era was actually banned from making Pokemon games entirely, and I wish that I was kidding. As seen here from the Gamer of all places, Matsuda was confirmed to be banned from making Pokemon games via documents that were found in this leak. And if you enjoy the content and want more non-BS reporting on games, consider liking the video, subscribing, leaving a comment, thank you. But according to those leaks, Matsuda was removed from headlining the Pokemon franchise during the development of Pokemon X and Y. The account that shared this information via the leak was this Twitter profile on screen here called Central Leaks, so all credit to them. According to those leaks, Junichi Matsuda ran the Pokemon franchise with an iron fist. It was detailed in the leaks that Matsuda alone controlled the personal decisions of the Pokemon franchise, the public relations, the game design, and the entire development and planning of the series too. In case you don't know which games Matsuda worked on, this handy dandy picture should probably help you out. As seen here, Matsuda directed Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Diamond, Pearl, Black and White, and finally X and Y. All games that push the franchise forward in meaningful ways, and they're all pretty much fan fan favorites besides maybe X and Y since he did get taken off their mid-development, but generally speaking, every Pokemon game that Matsuda directed was, let's be real, kind of peak. I mean, Black and White alone are probably my favorite generation outside of Red and Blue easily. I've replayed Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald way too many times already, and I think in Diamond alone, that's the one I played the most. I have like over 700 hours in Diamond, which was absurd, but hey, I love that game a lot. So obviously, as someone who loved Pokemon, Matsuda was pretty much the GOAT at the time, but according to these leaks again, around the Black and White era of games, Matsuda had so much power that nobody could reasonably oppose him in the company, and it quickly led to a fever point where the power of Matsuda began to spiral out of control. He would fire people that he deemed unnecessary, and would keep his favorite employees that enacted his will down the food chain instead. This eventually led the game development to no longer be about fun, but about the ego of Matsuda himself, if you will. Proper game design couldn't really be done according to these leaks, and this all led to the pivotal moment that would change Pokemon's trajectory forever. Because in those leaks, it details that Matsuda got into a heated argument with the father of Pokemon himself, Ken Sugimori. In case you somehow don't know who Ken Sugimori is, he's the original art director and designer of all the original 151 Pokemon. This is him on screen, by the way. He oversaw and created and fine-tuned every Pokemon you all know and love. Pikachu, Charizard, Mewtwo, it's all under Ken Sugimori. That iconic Pokemon look and designs, for example, is seen here with Red and Blue's cover art. Yeah, that's Ken Sugimori's art style. So like I said, the guy has power within the Pokemon company, because without him, let's be honest, the franchise would simply just not exist as it did now. But anyways, like I was saying, Junichi Matsuda got into an argument with Ken Sugimori. It's not detailed in the leaks what the argument was exactly about, but if I had to guess, it was obviously about the direction of Pokemon as a franchise and the game development side becoming increasingly harder to deal with as Matsuda's ego began to inflate to Galactus levels. This eventually led to an implosion at Game Freak, where Ken Sugimori used his executive power as the father of Pokemon and pretty much declared across the company that Junichi Matsuda would never direct another Pokemon game ever again for opposing him, mainline anyways. So after the fallout of Titans, I guess, Shigeru Omori would then become the next big director of the future Pokemon games. Here's an image of Shigeru Omori on screen with Matsuda standing behind him, and this is kind of important too, because Central Leaks went further into the leaked documents and discovered that not much actually changed in terms of game development following Omori taking over after Matsuda was removed by Ken Sugimori. So all the more recent games from Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, Violet and Scarlet, these were all directed by Omori. And if you're like me, these are arguably some of the worst and weakest installments in the franchise, both Pokemon design-wise and when it comes to innovation too. Because there basically wasn't much of any innovation, I guess, besides Mega Evolutions and the more recent tacked-on thing of having open world in Scarlet and Violet, which was, let's be honest, a mixed bag because the open world ran like literal garbage on the original Switch, and like I said earlier, Violet just broke me, and I have not played Pokemon since because I was left so disappointed by how bad it was. However, Central Leaks looked further into the documents and discovered that Omori, who directed the bad Pokemon games, in my opinion anyways, has since also been outed in recent years as he started to become Matsuda's puppet pretty much in terms of power, because nothing actually changed on the game development side under Omori's direction. He was still aligned with Matsuda, allegedly according to the documents anyways, and Omori's games were clearly not nearly as good as, say, Black and White or Ruby and Sapphire. I think we can all agree on that one. Anyway, Omori got ousted, like I said, because the leaks claimed if Omori kept leading Game Freak's Pokemon direction, which was under the company name Division 2, it would then lead to an organization that would spiral out of control and unravel itself due to internal fighting and bad blood, which is kind of sad to see. But the documents then claimed that in 2024, Omori was officially relieved of his duties. I don't know if he was fired or anything because Matsuda still worked at Game Freak regardless, even though Ken Sugimori removed him as a director of the whole franchise pretty much. But in case you don't know, Matsuda would still direct other games like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and the Diamond and Pearl remakes that were also done by Matsuda. But that Diamond and Pearl remake especially was considered a massive blunder and also hurt Game Freak's reputation big time, which doesn't really surprise me. But like I said, quality isn't really important to Pokemon fans because the Diamond and Pearl remake still sold a combined 15 million units regardless, despite being the lowest quality remakes the series has seen ever yet anyways. But by the way, the original Diamond and Pearl, that sold almost 18 million units. So the fact that the remake sold just shy of that while being a lazy remake proves that Pokemon fans will quite literally buy any slop that they're given these days. I think this user's comment on Central Leaks is, leaks of everything else, I guess, that Matsuda got removed. It kind of tells it how it is, but this is what they said. Yo, this guy is designing the best games ever. Let's ban him and make slop. I mean, yeah, pretty much, that's pretty much what happened, sadly. I mean, Sugimori got got mad at Matsuda, and then it then led to arguably some of the worst Pokemon games we've ever seen, and a big reason why I've walked away myself. Sword and Shield, for example, was just egregiously mid. They barely did anything to push the formula forward at all, and it became extra frustrating considering when games like Sword and Shield got released, Nintendo was revitalizing, reimagining other core franchises in really big ways, like The Legend of Zelda with Breath of the Wild, or Fire Emblem when they made Three Houses, which was another excellent game that I loved a lot. Yet when it came to Pokemon, the biggest IP they have, the company just didn't do anything interesting whatsoever with it. It just became a content mill. They just churned out game after game with barely any improvements pretty much, because the sales of these games still raked in billions no matter what. And if you know every Pokemon game regardless is going to sell like absolute hotcakes, I mean, why bother doing anything, I guess, differently? It does suck, but it is what it is. When you look at Matsuda's track record here on screen, minus Diamond and Pearl remakes, which were objectively just lazy, every other game that he has done has objectively been great. The dude even did Fire Red and Leaf Green, which were goated games. Dude, I loved Fire Red. Oh, what a great game. All the family road trips I took on as a kid, yeah, Fire Red was really great company, let me tell you. God, I really did love Pokemon games back then. However, when it comes to the latest game, Pokemon Legends ZA, this is actually the first Pokemon game in a long time not directed by any of these previous directors. Legends ZA is being directed by Haruka Toshigi. According to Bulbapedia, Haruka, if you go look at his credentials at Game Freak as seen on screen here, he's been working at Game Freak for a really long time. He worked on Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Sun Moon, Let's Go, Arceus, and more, and now Legends ZA is the first game that he's officially directing. I won't lie, Legends ZA doesn't look like a bad game. I don't know if it's good enough for me to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 to review it outright, which I haven't done myself yet. I guess let me know in the comments if you want me to review Legends ZA, but it's at least nice to see someone who isn't hopefully free of all the corporate nonsense of the other directors being able to make a fully new Pokemon game. Sadly, in the leaks too, we found out that originally Generation 8 was also meant to be prehistoric themed and have dinosaurs as the main creative force behind the Pokemon there. It was going to originally be called Pokemon King and Queen, with the king legendary being fighting and dragon and the queen being psychic and dragon type instead. Ultra Beasts were also going to be their own subsection of Pokemon as well, and there was originally going to be one Titan Pokemon per type across the entire game, plus an additional what they call Kaiser or Emperor Pokemon too. But all of this didn't happen, and instead you got Pokemon Sword and Shield over a prehistoric Pokemon game. Yeah, I hate this timeline, guys. We got robbed is what I'm saying. The other names for Sword and Shield, by the way, besides King and Queen, they were also going to potentially be called Cosmo and Galaxy, Order and Change. And this last one, which is pretty bizarre, but Femininity and Masculinity. Yeah, that's real, by the way. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, which is probably why they didn't go with it, and that's probably a good idea. But still, banning Matsuda for making peak Pokemon games is still insane. Maybe the ethics behind the scenes was getting worse. I don't know 100%, but the banning of Matsuda is like if Hidetaka Miyazaki was banned from making Soulsborne games, or if Hideo Kojima was banned from making Metal Gear Solid games. Oh wait, that did happen, and they haven't done much of anything with the Metal Gear IP since. Besides one remake, which doesn't run very well, in that terrible Metal Gear Survive game that demands money so you can have more save slots, which I'm not kidding, by the way. Go look that up, it's real. But this then circles me back to the DEI slop. It turns out that the next Pokemon mainline game, Wind and Wave, and I'll just read you what Central League said, because you will probably think I am lying if I said this out loud without them there to back me up, but here's what Wind and Wave will be about, as they say here, as you can see. Wind and Wave will have 18 total challenges based on each type of Pokemon, and they will be based on the sustainable development goals, and when you complete them all, you can then face the champion. Some of these goals include quality education, zero hunger, climate action, no poverty, and the funniest one being gender equality. Yes, this is real, and it's so stupid, I don't think I could make up a joke this funny if I did try, but that's right. It'll mean that you'll have to face poverty, things like climate change, and even sexism in the next mainline Pokemon game in order to beat the champion and beat the game, I guess, which is crazy, but yep, that's real. Now, we don't know which type of Pokemon like fire or water, etc. will be tied to each of these goals, I guess, yet, but it's really weird that Game Freak is taking essentially globalist ideal propaganda talking points and then turning them into core game objectives within their next mainline Pokemon game. If this doesn't tell you that DEI is going to be in Pokemon for the future, I really don't know what else to tell you, to be honest. I decided to straight up ask Google about this. So while not the SDG or Sustainable Development Goals are not a direct acronym, obviously, they are still connected. But this is what Google's AI said about it, as it reads here in the highlighted text. DEI principles are a core component of the SDG's overall mission. The SDGs are a global framework for sustainable development, while DEI refers to specific values and practices that support achieving these goals by emphasizing fair treatment, equal opportunity, and inclusion for are all people, and it continues. DEI is a foundational principle. The overarching principle of leaving no one behind in the SDGs is inherently about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So yes, these principles that are going to be the basis of the problems, if you will, I guess that players will have to fix in Pokemon Wind and Wave, will 100% be actual talking points and mission objectives of actual DEI companies in real life, which is absolutely crazy that I'm saying that out loud and that it's not fake. But I mean, as pointed out by others as well as seen here, they're also going to allow male characters to wear skirts and makeup too. And Nurse Joy is now black apparently in Legend ZA, so it's obvious where Nintendo is going with all of this. They're becoming a globalist-led company pretty much. Now, I'm not saying having black characters in a game is bad, of course. I don't care if Pokemon does that. They've done it well before too, and it's been fine, but it's obvious where they're going with all of this. I mean, Pokemon Go also removed the body shapes of characters too, but it's quite crazy, at least according to these leaks that Central posted, that they're flat out making the sustainable goals of DEI a core mechanic of their games in the future. It kind of proves that Pokemon and Nintendo are 100% in on all of that sort of stuff, which doesn't really surprise me. It's not like it'll affect their sales anyways. Because let's be real, Nintendo could release a PNG file of Pikachu and people would still buy it too. So Pokemon will still do gangbusters due to brand recognition alone. It's more so just eye-roll worthy that they're pushing this sort of stuff so hard anyways. It's not like Game Freak and Nintendo are hiding it. As seen here, they have a whole dedicated section to DEI on their website still. They have entire sections within this, like the Black Diaspora, which reads as follows here: "We are the Pokemon Black Diaspora Employee Resource Group. Our aim is to aid the creation of an inclusive company culture by providing a supportive and uplifting community for Black employees throughout the Pokemon Company International. We'll achieve this through education, community development, recruitment, and engagement with folks inside and outside the office. We want to create a place where every Black employee has a space where they can collaborate, relax, and empower each other through their daily lives, Black excellence, and Black representation." That's real, by the way. They also got as seen here the Rainbow Gym and Women of Pokemon 2, so the whole young boys being able to wear skirts and makeup thing, it really doesn't surprise me. And besides that, Pokemon in general is still behind the times. I mean, even still, the main games don't have voice acting, which is still very bizarre. One YouTuber was surprised by this named Nintendo Prime. Here's what they said: "I discovered over the last 24 hours that so many people want voice acting in Pokemon. I don't disagree with you. I enjoy voice acting in games. Didn't realize the desire for Pokemon to have it was this strong. Why? I mean, it's simple, because voice acting brings games to life more often than not. You already got Pokemon, making sound effects. Pikachu back in the day in games had the voice actor line where they would say Pikachu out loud too, because it brought the game to life. Pokemon makes billions of dollars. It'd be a drop in the bucket budget-wise to add voice acting. They don't do it simply because it's cheaper. Central Leaks also leaked the budget of Legend ZA. Allegedly, it didn't even cost them $13 million to make the whole game, which in today's industry, that is literal peanuts to make a AAA game, by the way. Most AAA games are at least somewhere near, I don't know, $50 to $100 million in budget, bare minimum mostly. Call of Duty, for example, spends like $400 million plus per game on average to make. That means that Activision could make like a dozen Pokemon games and then some for the cost of one Call of Duty game. And yet Legend ZA is priced in such a way that it will make its budget back immediately. For example, in Canada, where I live, as seen here via Amazon, the Switch 1 version of Legend ZA is $85 before taxes. The Switch 2 version is $100 before taxes. No idea why the Switch 2 version costs that much more, but there you go. But either way, with the power of math on our side, this means, before taxes obviously, but roughly that Nintendo needs to sell just 130,000 copies of Legend ZA to cover its budget on the game alone. Which, let's be real, it's Pokemon. They're going to make that budget back instantly, so the rest of the game's sales will just be millions in all profit for them anyways. Now, am I saying that Legend ZA looks bad? No, I'm not. I think it looks fine. At least they're evolving the formula somewhat, so credit where it's due. But I think companies could learn from Nintendo that maybe they should make cheaper games in the future, because it's absolutely insane that Call of Duty costs something like 30 times and then some the budget of a Pokemon game these days to make, which is actually kind of crazy. But overall, though, it's become very clear why Pokemon has kind of faltered in terms of quality based on these leaks alone. Matsuda got ousted, Omori made objectively worse games, but hopefully this new guy, Haruka, that's doing Legend ZA, can just turn it all around. I don't know if this will be enough for me to buy the game yet myself. I do own a Switch from 2017 still, but I don't own the Switch 2 yet myself. But I still don't think this is really enough for me to delve into this game particularly to review it myself, but I guess I'll just ask you guys. You guys can decide for me here. Should I review ZA? I guess I'll let the comments decide. Do you want me to scour through Legend ZA and look for all the nonsense? Let me know in the comments below. But what do you think about the trajectory of Pokemon as a franchise? It kind of makes sense why they hate Palworld so much, given what they've been making and how Palworld kind of exposed them for making objectively less ambitious games. I mean, for God's sakes, this is what Pokemon used to do back in the day with no voice acting. Like, Like, watch this clip. It's so cringe, but please watch. But look, whether people hate the DEI, it's not really going to stop with Pokemon. It's just too strong of an IP. But with the leaks, it's proving that Pokemon is in some weird turmoil body of ideologies behind the scenes. And they really did come close to imploding a couple of times already. But wild that we got all of this info, but let me know what you all think. Thanks for watching, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. And Nidoking is still the best Pokemon, by the way. Okay, bye.